is going on, everybody? Welcome in to the North End Podcast, episode 54. My name is Zach Graham, your host here on the North End, joined, as always, by my good buddy. He's on record as my best friend. His name is Ian Michaud, a.k.a. E, a.k.a. Lahoud James, a.k.a. Sebastian Drew Easy, a.k.a. Eastradamus. Hit again last night, a.k.a. Pap E. O'Daniel, a.k.a. The Fashionista, a.k.a. Chili Willy, a.k.a. Eon Stonkel. E, not present at the match last night against New Mexico United in the health and safety protocol. So that's what I want to know first. How are you feeling, my friend?
I'm definitely feeling a bit better. I passed the very medical and scientific backwoods examination moments ago. And
nice, there you go.
So my doctor, Moochie, he says that I should take another test and see if I'm ready to go Saturday.
Oh, well, I hope that test comes up negative so we can have your presence at the Dallas match this Saturday. Although I will note, E, you've missed two matches this season in all competitions in terms of being at home and just the 2 wins that we've had at Q2 so far this year. So maybe there's something there. I don't know. We'll see.
You're 1-1.
I'm a win nonetheless. And technically, we got a win, right, against Violette in the second leg, but it felt awful. So nobody counts that one as a win.
True.
We'll collect more data and report back.
Inconclusive right now.
A lot to get to on today's episode. Obviously coming out here Thursday evening because we had the midweek Open Cup match. So we'll recap the match against New Mexico United. We will preview that FC Dallas match. We will recap the Austin FC 2 match against Portland Timbers 2 that happened this past Sunday. We will preview the showdown this coming Sunday between FC 2 and Colorado Rapids 2. And then we've got a special guest at the end of the episode, Michael Lahoud, going to be joining us. So very excited to talk to Michael here in a little bit. But with such a packed episode, and of course, midweek episode, we've got our best ball update. We've got our week 12 picks coming up as well. Maybe we can get Michael to help us out because I know he dabbles a little bit in some of his other work for like CBS Golazo and stuff like that. So we'll see if he can help us out. Give us a few pointers.
The Lahoud special.
Exactly. Let's jump in and talk a little bit about what went down at Q2 Stadium last night. Austin FC getting off the schneid, finally getting a win in a knockout competition. And I say finally, it's our third foray, right? Obviously lost to San Antonio last year and then the Violette debacle over 2 legs earlier this season. But, I don't think anybody was going in there thinking this is going to be an absolute slam dunk because we've just been burned before. And recently as well. So lineup came. What's that?
Cautiously optimistic was the right way to feel.
Yeah, I think that is the best way to put it. And certainly felt a little more solid when the lineup came out before the match yesterday because all of us were yearning for a strong lineup here. And that could be tough to do with. We know how congested the schedule has been and will continue to be throughout this month and now in the beginning of June as well. And with no Diego and no Seba and no Owen, how strong can this lineup actually be? And I thought Josh did or put out a lineup that was about as strong as I could have orchestrated myself without putting, just Julio back there with Leo. So the 11 we did see Stuver get in there. Stuver wearing the armband with Cascante on the bench and Driussi on the shelf. Then we had Hector getting back in there for his second action of the year, Nick Lima, Adam Lundqvist, and then Leo Weissman. And this is the one thing, I rarely have a gripe with the media team, but putting Leo at the bottom of this lineup graphic where we typically put the striker was really weird because I went through the top, like, okay, what are we doing on defense? Like, oh, we're just going to play no center backs. And then got to the end and saw Weissman down there. Danny and Johan in the defensive midfield, I think, as we had prognosticated on Sunday night, Redes and Rigoni. As we had said, it's really hard to bench those guys right now, Maxey getting the start rotated in up top, and Alex Ring also on that back line. Bersano, Bruin, Cascante, Jeffel, Finley, Gallagher, and Radovanovic on the bench. So what was your reaction when that lineup came out? I imagine it was similar. It was like, all right, here we go. Like we're going for this.
Yeah, definitely very satisfied with that lineup. Happy to see Hector in there and to see him play pretty well as well. I thought it was the right 11 for this game, clearly showing that we're not taking this team too lightly. And a lot of the similar, a lot of guys in the attacking front that we had in the Portland game there, and all the positives that we wanted to try to build on from that with Rigoni and Redes.
Yeah, and to me, this highlighted, and again, the competition was not extremely stiff last night. Like
they were pretty bad.
The game was dominated start to finish by Austin. But I thought the lineup, it does show the versatility of this new formation in my eyes. That we started really the one true center back with Leo there in the middle and flanking him with Nick on the right and then Alex on the left. And then, of course, Hector and Adam out wide and pushing further up. I know we said similar things on Sunday, but I am very encouraged by the new tactics and kind of the adjustments again that the coaching staff have made. We don't have to continue going over that. We heaped praise on Josh and the staff on Sunday. Not a ton of chances for New Mexico in this one. 9th minute, though, one of their better chances of the match. Long ball comes down to them off the goal kick, and then kind of 3-on-3 there, nifty little give and go, kind of a really wide play, like from one side of the 18 to the other, about 10 yards out, left to right, and then back right to left. And I forget the name of the player who had the chance, but right in on net, him versus Stuver, and puts it over the crossbar. And so, man, like, that was certainly nervy because, again, we've seen this before in this type of game. And if they go up 1-0 there, the atmosphere in the stadium, it would have been brutal. It would have been so brutal.
It would have been really bad.
Yeah. And that's one thing that obviously, I guess we can just go through this here. 24th minute didn't take long for Austin to find the back of the net. Really worth threatening, even despite that New Mexico chance almost 10 minutes in. The possession in the first half favored Austin. The chances favored Austin. They were dictating the tempo and pretty much getting whatever they wanted. Still being, especially before that first goal, a little bit too methodical for me at times. But they knew what they were doing. They were in control. And in the 24th minute, Lundqvist, who I thought, I guess we can talk about Adam right now. As a whole last night, by far his best performance in a Verde and black jersey. I don't know if that came through for you on the stream, but he was extremely active up and down that left side, and not just pinging in crosses from that side, but had like 4 or 5 attempts on net, and like probably 2 of them that were extremely threatening. And I thought that was a really good sign. Our buddies Guillermo and Jose were with me in the North End last night, and we were kind of all talking about, man, Lundqvist just looks like he's getting more comfortable in his new digs with his new surroundings in Q2, his new teammates. And I thought, again, despite the competition, I thought it was a really promising sign to see him have a good night.
I agree. I mean, he got behind that defensive line several times, and we were able to get him some pretty dangerous balls there to work with. Now, with this new formation, that's really interesting to see is that we have both of these outlets on either side of the formation where we can kind of get the ball up and then start going, and then still have the ability to change the field while progressing forward. It's fun to see, and it looked like Lundqvist really got to like thrive in it last night.
Yeah, and the way, and you and I were texting some throughout the match as well, and you were noting how open they were leaving both Hector and Lundqvist up there on those wings, and those changes on the pitch came fairly simply, I thought, in the first half, and was a big reason why we were able to control the ball and move it up the field a little bit with a little more ease than we have against our league opponents. So in that 24th minute, Lundqvist cross gets blocked out for a corner. Rigoni trots over, takes the corner from the left side. It's kind of short, but it did on the replay looked like that was a set play where Rodney is charging forward, and Rodney Redes makes contact, flicks it towards the back post, and it hits the side netting, and it's in. And Q2, which was, I'd say at the height last night, 70% full, started each half about halfway full, and people made their way to their seats throughout the half. But everybody who was there, man, obviously went nuts. And, the team Maxey giving him a little smooch on the head and some extra, pats on the back. And then the stadium breaks out in Rodney. Like it was a great moment for everybody involved. And the party continued into this morning for sure on social media.
Yeah. I'm sad I missed it, man. To be there to hear the Rodney chants would have been fucking sweet.
Yeah. But I mean, Guy has been great compared to what our expectations of him were a month ago. And hopefully this just continues on an upward trajectory for him as a player, because if we said it a couple of weeks ago, right? When you were laughing at me suggesting that I wanted Rodney to start, it was like, man, if we get anything out of him this season, it's a huge win, because I think most of us were treating him like a sunk cost, even in 2022. For
sure. And he's been fantastic, man.
Yeah. So great to see that. We were kind of joking. Damon was there last night. Uncle Dave was there. Big Fudge was there. We were joking, if he gets one tonight, he's getting two. And he did have a couple other chances on the night, but wasn't able to bury it. But we did get another goal 12 minutes later, 36 minute, building up out of the back, a beautiful, just by the book definition of how Josh wants this to look, building up out of the back, 14 passes built up to a beautiful tap in goal for Maxey off a Lundqvist cross. So Lundqvist, not just putting in nice crosses and taking chances on net, but does connect for the assist here to Maxi Urruti, who taps it in, his second of the season in all competitions. And on that possession, 9 of the 11 players on the pitch got a touch. Just beautiful to watch.
Yeah, I mean, that's how we want to do it, and that's what it looks like when it's operating at its highest capacity.
Yeah, no question. So then we did. I mean, I think the desired outcome before we kicked off last night, I think, was to make these subs at the half after getting a lead. And so I think the first half played out exactly how we wanted it to be scripted. Mm-hmm. And we do see two changes on the back line coming into the second half. Julio Cascante replaced Leo Väisänen at the center of the 3 center backs that were rolling out there. And then Alexander Radovanovic made his debut for Austin FC, replacing Alex Ring. So we had both talked about how this was the game to get Leo some rest. So 45-minute shift, got a little sweat, wasn't tested too much on that back line, gets out of there. And then we get Julio some run and try to get Rado integrated and a little more comfortable, because we will, I'm sure, be calling his name over the next few weeks.
Yeah, it was perfect as you could get right there, to get Leo and to get Alex out, who have a lot of heavy minutes for us as we try to, right this ship here. So to get those 2 goals early and just kind of be in command of the game and not have any sort of threat after that 9th minute was fantastic. And seeing Julio and Rado together is great too. And getting both of them acclimated, to game speed is very valuable for us right now.
Yeah, no question. 63rd minute, another pair of changes. Finley comes in for Rigoni. And again, Andy Rigoni, 3 straight games of goal contributions. The streak is on. And now 4 goal contributions over the last 9 games in all competitions. I mean, that's pretty close to a goal contribution every other game. And I don't know what else you expect out of any player in this league. Like, that is a pretty damn good pace there. Again, small sample size. And we're not just ignoring what he didn't do for the first, 11, 12 games of his Austin FC career, but certainly turning it around as of late.
I mean, he has consistently passed the eye test throughout the season. He's consistently looked good. We've called him out on some bad games, and he's just continued to show up, do his job, and now the fruit is starting to, come to bear, and it's awesome to see.
Yeah, and hopefully, that Josh had said it, other teammates had said it, we had said it, other fans had said it, that once you break that seal, like the confidence can just start to soar. And it seems like that's happening for him, happening for Rodney Redes. And so I told those We Are Austin TV boys after the game last night, I said, Zardes is scoring on Saturday, and then we're coming on the fan reactions after to celebrate. Hopefully Jossie's the last one left, right?
Yeah.
I mean, Diego hasn't scored yet this season, but less worried about that once he comes back. I think he's going to be, he's going to be back at it. The Diego of old, at least fingers crossed for that.
We would love that. It also seems like the team is really starting to separate themselves from the Claudio bullshit and that kind of shitstorm. And we're moving past that, because not only were we dealing with these, large amount of injuries, we were dealing with a lot of turmoil within the organization. So it's good to see these dudes looking happy, looking excited to play again, and I'm all for it, man.
So Finley in for Rigoni. That moves Rodney Redes from the right to the left. And then Sophie Jeffel also came in for Danny. Danny, another great performance, I thought, by him. Again, being able to get him off 60 minutes in was good, because you expect him, especially while Owen's away, to probably be in there for 90 minutes in most, if not all, of these matches coming up in quick succession. One more sub later on in the match. I want to say it was right around the 80th minute. John Gallagher came in for Adam Lundqvist there on the left. Or was it Nick Lima? One of those two on the left. I think it was Lundqvist.
It was Lundqvist.
Yeah, I think Lima was in there, I think, the entire 90. But so getting Johnny in there, I mean, this is where, again, Josh knows more than me. They've got a plan in place. I would have liked to see Bruin and just completely save Johnny, but getting him out there for 10 minutes, okay. No real gripe there. But those were the last two guys available there on the bench. 13 shots to 9 for Austin, ends up just that 2-0 win. And the entire second half, it was boring. But it was boring in the sense that,
their keeper made. Sorry.
No, go ahead.
Their keeper made some really nice saves.
Yeah, he did.
At the tail end of the second half there, because that easily could have been 4-0.
Yeah.
And honestly, I was like, man, keep saving those, bro. I'm going to be right.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah.
Looking for the Easter Damas.
Needed it.
Yeah, Tambakis back there in goal. We couldn't tell what his name was from the jersey in the north end, so we had to look it up. And by the time we figured that out, he was gone. It was second half.
This is that's tough material to work with.
Yeah. I think Guillermo attempted something,
oh God.
Stavros hates you or something like that. We were workshopping last night, the Open Cup match. But man, the second half, the vibe in the stadium after that second goal was like 2022 or even 2021, but just it had been so long since we had a lead, right? Mm-hmm. Those games in 21, the few that we did, get all 3 points at home. It's just that those good vibes, the supporter section, which again was 70% full, dude, the 02, 03, and 04 down there were rocking.
Nice.
And yeah, they had extra juice down there. There was just that buzz in the stadium where things are good on this night at Q2, and we haven't had a ton of those this season so far. So hopefully it's just again the start of many more to come here in the summer months. 8 of those 13 Austin shots were on target, just 2 shots on target for New Mexico, and 9 of the 13 Austin shots were in the box. So Austin advances for the first time in club history out of the round of 32 and into, of course, the round of 16, where the draw took place earlier this afternoon. The region for Austin was Austin, Houston, Minnesota United, and Chicago Fire. Austin was drawn first in that pod of 4. So not only will they host the round of 16 match, which they were drawn against Chicago Fire, who we have never played before. But being H1 in the pod means that if we advance past the round of 16, we will also host the winner of Houston and Minnesota. So we are sun running with these draws, man. Like, we get the one USL team in our pod last round, and now we get to host potentially 2 more matches. And if you win those 2, man, you are into the semifinals, which don't take place until August. So I know we had recalibrated, or at least I had, to where, we're at a CCL. Now we're into Open Cup. We get a good draw. We're 5 wins from winning a trophy. To me, this is the priority over the regular season matches to me. And I understand that this match later in the month against Chicago is going to come on Houston week, right? The first Copa Tejas match that counts towards the standings this season. But I want the Open Cup. And because Copa Tejas at the end of the day is just our supporters trophy. And I'm not diminishing it at all. We want to win that too.
Mm-hmm.
But winning the Open Cup and getting back into CCL, again, regardless of if you think we're ready for it or not, that is just a better accolade to have. And getting that Open Cup trophy in the trophy cabinet would be huge for the club going forward. So I hope that once we get to that 2 weeks from now, that game against Chicago will be May 23rd or 24th. That schedule will be set here later on Thursday evening. So I guess I'll check while we're talking here, but I want to see as the best lineup we can in that game, win that one. And then it's 2 more weeks until we would host the, Elite 8 match. Let's go for it, man. We're at home. We got our fans.
Yeah.
Let's
got
do
a
this.
good draw. That's totally fair. Totally fair. And we can definitely get into that semifinal. And I think getting back to CCL is a really smart goal and clearly an attainable one through this tournament. Getting the Chicago Fire is a nice draw. Getting them to come down here into the fucking heat is even nicer. If we're a little healthier at that point, which we theoretically should be, we could be even more rotated in the sense that we could have, Seba playing in our league matches and getting some time here in this Open Cup and rotating guys there. And honestly, I think this is where we're going to see the best of Maxi. This is what he is right now. Like seeing him last night in that game, playing the full 90, this is where we're going to play him. He's not starting anymore in the league matches for G.
Yeah.
He's just not.
Yeah. At least for now, it feels that way, right? And not seeing Zardes not even being on the bench last night does, I think, lean into that idea he's going to start against Dallas on Saturday.
What if Bruin starts?
Well, then some people will get their wish and see him for 40 to 60 minutes. Yeah, man, but you mentioned Chicago, like catching those guys at the right time, like not one of the powerhouses out east. And just fired their coach, so going through a little bit of roster turmoil there. And I'm excited. Look, I know he's not at the height of his game anymore, but I'm excited to see Sheridan Shaqiri come through Austin. Yeah. And
absolutely. Legend.
Yeah.
Guy's a legend.
And Kai Kamara, it's going to be fun.
Yeah. Man. Yeah. And I mean, they're just, like you said, they fired their coach. They got this turmoil going on. How are they going to approach this? How does the coach want to handle this tournament? Can you imagine being in that boat?
No.
Because somebody told me that the Wolf Out mainstream this week. Someone, I don't know. It's hard to find the tweet after. I think it was insensitive material or misinformation. Got flagged, took it down. Yeah, that's weird.
I don't know, man.
Really weird stuff.
North End's got eyes everywhere. Man of the match, Rodney Redes, not just in the stadium, but on the FOTMob ratings as well. 8.1 rating last night. And as you would assume, pretty good ratings on all of these Austin players last night, including a 7.9 for Adam Lundqvist, 7.5 on Maxi, Johan Valencia, 7.6 on Danny, 7.4 on Rigoni, 7.4 on Lima. Great game. Took care of business, as we should. And, we're moving on to Saturday.
You can only play who's in front of you.
So who is in front of us is FC Dallas. Again, this match will not count towards the Copa Tejas standings, but it does count towards the MLS standings and, the standings of rage in our hearts if we were to drop this one at home. So, and maybe I'm just thinking, the standings of rage because I had to go through the history between our two teams and look at 2021 when we lost 3 consecutive times to FC Dallas in quick succession. August 7th, 21, 2-0 loss in Frisco. That was the game that Josh Wolf started that heavily rotated lineup. You had Driussi on the bench. You had Manny Perez starting up top, who, again, plays right back for Louisville in the USL now. So we don't need to talk too much more about that disaster. Later on in that month, on the 29th, that was the 5-3 loss at home, the most goals Austin FC has ever given up at Q2 Stadium. Braces for both Ricardo Pepi and Jesus Ferreira in the first half. I believe that was the game you showed up late. It was already 1-1. Julio had just equalized with the header, and then things went awry. 5-1 at one point. Austin pulls 2 back. There was a little bit of juice in that stadium at 5-3, but ends up being the final score. And then later on in that season, October 30th, 2-1 loss in Frisco. Somehow we were still alive for the Copa Tejas in that match. A win would have done it. I say somehow. We know why we're still alive because Houston's the 3rd team and everybody beats up on those bums. So Fagu scores first in that one, banger from outside the box. So for about 2 minutes, getting our hopes up. Oh my God, like end of our expansion season. It's been shit, but maybe we're going to steal the supporters trophy, the Copa Tejas, and Jesus Ferreira, bang, equalizer 2 minutes later. Hector Jimenez, red card, second half. And then I think like an 85th minute goal for FC Dallas to take it down. But pretty good last year. Certainly improved the results there. 2 meetings in the regular season. June 25th, 2022, 2-2 draw in Austin. That was a 2-0 comeback for Austin. Driussi on the first goal, and then the Nick Lima to Danny Hosen equalizer late on. And a piece of, I guess, North End lore there. That's where our little logo comes from. Our little Twitter avatar, like the cover for the podcast. Yeah, that is from that game. Right after the Danny Hosen equalizer. A month later, July 16th of last year, 1-1 draw in Frisco. That was the final meeting of Copa Tejas in 2022. We needed a result to clinch the title, and Diego Fagundez's late goal to equalize 1-1 wins Copa Tejas for Austin. And then after a delay, celebrated in the parking lot, but that delay did give us the Ruben Gabrielson doing the worm video. So, we can appreciate that delay, the shenanigans there. Then, of course, our favorite meeting between these two teams, October 23rd, 2022, Western Conference semifinals, goals from Musa Jite, and then right after that, Sebastian Driussi, almost went Drew Easy there. 2-1 win for Austin, advancing to the Western Conference final last year. So overall, obviously, Dallas, the upper hand, but the most important win went to Austin, and certainly this series has turned in a verde and black direction. This is the first of 3 meetings this year, and Dallas coming off a 2-0 loss to Nashville in the Open Cup last night. They played a similar lineup to Austin where it wasn't all starters, but did play some starters. Jesus Ferreira started, Paxton Pomykal started. They did have some of their normal guys out there and then subbed some of their, main starters in off the bench. Prior to the Open Cup loss, their last league match was postponed on Saturday against St. Louis due to lightning in the 50th minute. And then prior to that, their last 3 games that have finished in MLS play, 0-0 draw at Minnesota, a 3-1 loss at NYCFC, and then a 2-1 win over RSL at home. Jesus Ferreira leads FC Dallas, unsurprisingly, 5 goals for Dallas. Dallas sitting on 15 points through their 10 games. Of course, Austin sitting on 10 points through our 10 games. They have a goal differential of +1. I know Dallas fans have been frustrated with Paul Arriola's lack of production. Just 2 assists for a player who they expect a higher caliber of output from. Alan Velasco, of course, is a bright spot for this team, but was injured for multiple weeks and is working his way back now. I believe came off the bench in the Open Cup loss last night. So, we know the pedigree of this team. We know the talent they have, and we've said many times before how much we respect this franchise from the top down. So I guess let's talk about us. Obviously, Austin, pretty much everybody we are going or want to see play here on Saturday got a turn last night, really outside of Giassi Zardes. Rumor was, I think like a week ago, what I saw was the rumor is Diego is targeting this game to make his return. I don't think we've had an update on his status as of yet, but I know there was media availability this morning. So maybe Josh did shed some light on that. If he did, everybody will find out soon enough. See a quizzical look on your face. What's going on?
I think I saw somewhere that Josh did say he was targeting coming back here.
Okay, nice.
But that could be wrong. I think I saw it on the We Are Awesome TV post.
Okay, nice. Well, that would certainly be a big help for our chances in this one. Obviously we know that we're going to have no Owen Wolf, no Sebastian Driussi. But I'll ask you, how do you think we line up here? And I guess tie it in with what you want to see from the starting 11 here. And, I know the schedule's congested, but this is a rivalry match. Copa Tejas or not, Dallas comes to our house. We want nothing but 3 points here.
Yeah, I mean, this is a good squad. We know the talent here. Jesus Ferreira is really good at soccer.
Yeah.
I was actually pretty surprised to hear the recent form that they've been in after you reeled off those games right there. I had thought that they had been a little bit hotter than that, but I guess I was wrong. In regards to our lineup and what we need to do on our side, it's G back at the 9 for sure. I think for me, after seeing Maxi last night, I think that debate is over. Mm-hmm. I know G hasn't scored. Maxi hasn't scored in league play. I think it's G here on out. I know we've jumped back and forth and this and that and the other thing, but G's hold-up game is important to us. It's something that we're missing from what Moose did. Mm-hmm. And Maxi just doesn't have that in him. And if we're going to be playing these line-breaking balls forward to try to get going, we need somebody to be able to hold up that ball for us. So it's G at the top for me. Mm-hmm. Rodney Redes, super hot pairing. Roll him out again for sure. Danny, I think it's Johan again. Seeing Jeffel last night, nothing overly impressive, nothing overly disappointing. I think he probably should have had a better strike on that header that he had a chance with. But it is what it is. It's hindsight there. Mm-hmm. Johnny, Leo, Julio, Alex, obviously the Stuve man. Probably Lima.
Yeah.
I think this is a game that he understands. He's been a part of this rivalry. He understands, the magnitude of it for the fans, what it means to this club to beat this team. So I'm probably going to go Lima there. And, I feel pretty good about that 11 there rolling out against these guys, especially with, a healthy Julio back there, kind of getting our definitive voice back with his presence and everything. Should be much more rested Alex now with, not much more rested, but more rested than he could have been if that game had gone a bit sour. So, yeah, I feel pretty good about it. And then, like we said, this new formation allows us to push the ball up the field from either side and be dangerous from either side. What I can't remember when I said it, but, the Rigoni on the left side. Mm-hmm. Kind of unleashed, it was just a fresh kind of look for him, and it's been working out quite well for us. Mm-hmm. So, it's going to be a dogfight. They want to beat us, we want to beat them for sure, and I'm looking forward to a great match. And I do love watching Jesus Ferreira play, just because I really like his game and his haircut. I'm a big fan. Yeah.
Well, and I will say one thing. I'm tired of that motherfucker scoring at Q2. He scores in a Dallas uniform, and then he comes in and he bangs 3 in, 4 in for the U.S. in the 2 games that they've been there. And
he's way too comfortable. He's way too comfortable here.
Tired of that. So let's make him a little uncomfortable here on Saturday. I don't think I differ too much from you here on the lineup predictions. But I'll tell you my desires, and this is assuming that he's ready to go and play 60 minutes. let's start Diego and let's figure out a way to either get him in that wing back role where like Lundqvist is and put him on the same side as Rigoni and let those guys go to work. I don't think that's probably the smartest idea, because the thing with Lundqvist pushing up is he can cross in with that left, and Diego likes to play on the left so he can cut in on his stronger right foot. So maybe we put Diego on the right, or maybe we start him for Rodney, kind of in that, pushed in role there up top. I would just if he's ready to play 60 minutes, I would like to see him start. I think that would give us an extra boost of energy on the field, just from what he does, of course, but then also in the stadium, being able to hear Diego announced as a starter, I think would be a good boost for everybody involved. And then again, I don't think this is likely, especially because it sounded like Josh was pretty satisfied with Johan last night, and for good reason. He played well. But give me a back three of Rado, Leo, Julio, and push Ring up into the midfield next to Danny.
Okay.
I just think for this match, get our best players on the field if they can go. And to me, that's how you do that. Because now that we've got the center back reinforcements, let's use them. And again, Rado may not be ready for a start right now. And again, Diego might not be ready for a start, but I would love to see those guys in the field. Obviously, Diego just for the talent in the attacking half, and getting Ring some time in the midfield. I think he deserves it. And there's really no doubt in my mind that he's still better than Valencia in that position.
Yeah.
So
we'll
see.
Yeah, that's fair. I got to see something about Diego first.
Sure. And that's fair too.
I got to see him in training or something until, I can expect, or not expect, but, have that on my wish list, I suppose.
Sure. That's fair. I think that, look, here's the positive overall for me from this discussion. We got lineup decisions.
Yeah.
Finally.
Yeah, we're not forced into stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm with you on Jassy over Maxi. Again, depending on game script, I see Maxi come in or Bruin or both. But yeah, give me G up front. And I think Jassy scores. So I guess that means that I'm not predicting 0 goals for Austin FC, but I'll start with you here. I know you're not predicting an Austin FC draw or a loss against FC Dallas. So tell me, how much is Austin FC beating FC Dallas by on Saturday?
I think this is a 2-1 victory.
2-1.
Verde and Black.
Okay, I like it. Any other no goal calls there? Anything? I'm not trying to pressure you. I'm just, I didn't know if you had anything cooking.
I'm going to let you roll with the G call. You send out the G call, put up the bat signal, and then I'll save mine for later if it doesn't work out.
Okay. All right. Unfortunately, I'm going to 2. I think it's a draw here. Even with the positives that we've had over the last couple weeks, it's tough for me to say that we are at a point where I'm confident that we're going to beat this team. I'm not surprised if we win. I'm also not surprised if we drop this one. Definitely nervous about the result here. Would be ecstatic with 3 points. So I'm hopeful, but I think 2-2 draw. Both teams get a couple on the board there, and yeah, one of them will be Jassy Zardes. And look, he may accidentally knock it in off his head. That's happened in his career plenty of times before. But guess what? We'll fucking take it.
We'll take it.
So 2-2 draw here. Let's get into a little bit of last business day before we get to the nonsense. On Sunday, we, talked about the lineup for FC2 out there against Timbers 2, and it did not take long. We're getting some NBA news here, and I guess Mooch not happy about it.
Looks like they just started leaf blowing outside my apartment.
Hey, there you go. It's that time of year.
Hey.
Well, it didn't take long for Austin FC2 to get to work against Timbers 2. We mentioned the heavy favorites that Austin were, even on the road. 4th minute, Ocampo Chavez on the break, and just the absolute highlight play. I mean, hard for me to describe it better than just zoop, zoop, zoop,
yeah,
and shot. It just gets into the box. The Timbers 2 defender helpless as AOC cuts it back, not once, not twice, but 3 times. Takes a shot that gets deflected right to David Rodriguez, who always in the right place at the right time, it seems. He slots it home. And I think I went right to Twitter, clipped the goal, gave those guys their props and said, we are about to destroy this team. And by that, I meant, 1-0 win, because it finishes 1-0 in favor of Austin FC2. But it is 3 points all the same. And that is the first outright win on the road for FC2. Little bit of concern mid-second half. CJ, our boy, goes down. Looked funky. Like at first I thought it was a cramp, but then I thought it was maybe the same leg with the quad, had flared up. And I did get confirmation from a very strong source that, yes, was just cramps. So glad to see CJ okay and hopefully ready to go here this coming weekend. 12 shots to 12 in that one. So again, like Portland put up a much bigger fight, a much stronger performance than we were expecting, and maybe even than FC2 was expecting coming in there. That Noel Kaliskin is, I think how you say that, the guy who had just been signed to their first team. He came off the bench for him in that match, and he was good, and I think definitely helped them put some pressure on FC2. But Damian Loss once again shutting shit down. Kid's good, man.
Yeah, ever since I gave him that pep talk.
Yeah, there you go. Let's talk a little bit about the showdown coming up here for Austin FC2 on Sunday, taking on Rapids 2 on the road. It'll be 5 p.m. Central Time. Rapids 2 right now in Next Pro, in the Western Conference, the only team that is above Austin FC2, and that is on wins and goal differential. They beat us on the first 2 tiebreakers there, and they have a game in hand, both teams on 19 points, but Colorado absolutely decimating this league right now. 19 goals for to just 6, again, 6 wins and 1 draw.
How many home games they played?
Let's see. We'll go to Rapids 2. Fixtures. They have been at home for 4 of their 7 games. And the one game that they drew and then they lost in the penalty shootout was to St. Louis City 2. But so a very strong team that Austin FC2 is traveling to face here. We will give our little background. We always like to do a little scout on these Next Pro opponents. Rapids 2, very young squad, similar to us. They were announced in 2021 as one of the 21 clubs that would field the team for Next Pro. So they began play in the 2022 Next Pro season. They were not very good. They weren't T2 bad, but still 7 wins, 6 draws, 11 losses, minus 23 on their goal differential. Head coach is Eric Bushy. He joined the Rapids organization in 2017. He was the head coach of their U23 team at the time, which was, I think, a USL PDL team, like a development league team that they had. He's also had coaching experience at the D3 level, the club level. He was the assistant for the U17 women's national team at the World Cup a few years ago, and the assistant for the U23 women's national team for a period of time. He also won 5 national championships at the club level, 3 as a coach, 2 as an academy director. Played college ball at Belhaven, won the national title. NAIA at that point was Belhaven in 1992. Captained and coached at the USL level, both in Jackson and Spokane in the 90s. So that's Coach Bushy for Rapids 2. And again, like we said, top of the table, 6 wins, 1 draw, game in hand on Austin. They score 2.7 goals per game compared to Austin's 1.6. And again, we mentioned the plus 13 goal differential. They are led right now with 7 goals by Yosuke Hania. Not a first-team contract, but scoring in bunches, clearly with 7 goals. They currently have 11 first-team contracts on the roster. Yeah. You wonder why they're good.
Yeah.
Also 10 academy kids. So a large roster here right now for Rapids 2. A couple of their big names here. We know about Kevin Cabral, right? And the trade from Galaxy to the Rapids, and devastating goal against Austin and then scoring against his former team this past weekend. His younger brother, Remy, was with Galaxy 2. He has now come over to Rapids as well, plays for Rapids 2. So the Frenchman brothers there in Colorado.
Deal.
What's that?
The old package deal.
Yeah.
The old Antetokounmpo.
Yeah. The Antetokounmpos are like the ultimate package deal. Isn't there? There's 5 of them.
They're all watching the Lakers.
Hey, one of them has a championship with the Lakers, doesn't he? Wasn't he on the bubble team?
Yes.
It's not Thanasis, but it was...
Yeah, it was not Thanasis. Yes, I know.
What's the other one? Alex is the young one. He's with Raptors 905. Here's your NBA G League talk, everybody. What is the other one's name?
People love it.
I can't move on. I can't move on.
Isn't it like
That's
Kostas?
right. Kostas. Yeah, that's the one that was with the Lakers in the bubble championship. So there you go. Crisis averted, everybody. We named the Antetokounmpos. Let's name some of the other first-team players here for Rapids, too. Number 14, you can look out for these guys. Calvin Harris is number 14. He had 24 appearances for FC Cincinnati, was the 2nd pick overall in 2021, Generation Adidas player. Made the bench for Colorado last season, but no appearances. So obviously didn't work out great for Cincy. That was a wooden spoon season, but I would be so frustrated to give up on a 2nd pick after one season. That's what Cincy did. But look at Cincy now. So how am I supposed to argue? And he's still down in Next Pro for a Colorado team that could certainly use some help on offense. Number 15 is a left back, Alex Gersbach. He has 1 appearance for the Rapids this season. Number 18 is Oliver Larraz. He has 4 appearances for the Rapids, although those appearances all came in 2021. Number 27, Sebastian Anderson, had 7 appearances for the Rapids in 2019. At age 16, he spent most of the time since on loan with Colorado Switchbacks. I believe that's a USL team there in Colorado. Number 30, Abubakar Keita. No relation to Lalas Abubakar, but they got 2 Abubakars in the franchise. He's a center back, 38 career appearances with Columbus Crew. So this is an MLS veteran here playing down at the Next Pro level. They're stacked at center back, man. Number 31, Anthony Markinich, 6 appearances for the Rapids. All 6 of those came last year. He's a center back. And then number 64, I love this name, Moise Bombito, center back. He was the 3rd overall pick in the Super Draft and, of course, a Generation Adidas player. So massive back line there, and going to be a really good test, I think, for our guys, especially our attacking front, to try to get some goals on this Colorado team and stout defense that they're running out there. We saw a couple changes for FC2, especially on the bench, right? Like we saw Micah Burton get left at home. Cristo Vela was left at home last week. I think that's just normal rotation for a team that is extremely deep at this level. I think we could see one or both of those guys, get back with the team on the road this weekend. So I'll ask you anything special you think we want to see. Like it's kind of silly for us, I think, to predict at this point because the team is almost too deep at every position. I think outside of center back. So I'll just say, what do you want to see from the starting 11 or the bench from FC2 on Sunday in showdown at the top of the standings?
Our best 11, for sure. This is a good test. I mean, you went through the lengthy pro contracts that they have on this team, and ultimately, all these guys in Next Pro want to be playing in MLS. Mm-hmm. So here's your chance to go out versus a squad that is chock full of dudes who have been signed to pro contracts and have played some games, got some caps at the pro level. So your best 11's got to come out, and I think it's Hafferty, Sal, Kip, obviously lost in the back. Probably Charlie. I think it's probably Charlie. I'd like to see Bobo in the middle there. Mm-hmm. I'm still trying to figure out who he pairs pretty well with, and I don't know if it's Balti right now or if it's Noel, just because Noel's so good. But I think Bobo just does a lot of things that's kind of similar to what Noel does.
I feel like he's done really well next to Steve. I feel like those two have done well on the pitch together.
That is true. I think I'd like to see EJ start. I would. Yeah. I think this is a game that you're going to see with these pro contracts. They're going to have some physicality, some larger guys, and EJ, I think, is one of our players on this next pro team that can handle that, kind of grown man strength, because it's a whole different ball game. I think David is just too fucking good to keep on the bench. He just has a nose for the ball. He knows how to create. He sees space well. He plays balls into space well. AOC at the top because there's really no one competing with him.
Pino doesn't appear to be pushing him really at all at this point.
And it seems pretty well deserved that it should be AOC.
Yeah.
Sure. And then CJ, on the other side there.
Yeah. Well, I was going to say my main thing was I want to see EJ. Also, happy birthday. EJ's 20th birthday today. I want to see him get out there, even if it's off the bench. Like I just want, he needs to appear in this match. And I think we're going to need to utilize that depth to get a result here because we're going to the elevation out there in Denver. And so, hell, guys, I mean, I know, they do the oxygen deprivation training here at home and all that, but there's nothing like getting out there in the real thing out there in the Rockies. And so hydrate, fellas, and we'll be cheering for you, potentially in between maybe 3 Game 7s in the NBA on Sunday. So we could have a busy Sunday. We'll see. Ian, right. If you're not watching, Ian does not think so. Big Game 6 tonight, or tomorrow, rather. Big Game 6 tomorrow for the Lakers. All right, so jumping into the nonsense here on, the typical Wednesday nonsense. Midweek Potter. I guess it's Thursday nonsense today, but let's do best ball first this week because I think we're going to be able to talk bets with Michael Lahoud, which again, hopefully he gives us some pointers. Best ball, look, we're on the upward trend. We had won 2 weeks in a row, didn't quite get week 11 because Moon Tower sets a new weekly record with 63 points behind Hani Mukhtar's hat trick. That helps a little bit. 21 points for Hani there. So 63 total for Moon Tower. But we're on that ass still. 58 for the North End Pod Boys, which is a new weekly high for us on the season. So again, we are coming for that second spot. 11 from Capetti behind his brace. 11 from Evander. 10 from Ladero. 10 from Kai Wagner. 8 from Georgi Petrovic, our MVP, hands down. Bye week from Cucho Hernandez, so getting him back this week is certainly going to help our chances. But again, like I said, closing the gap on second because We Are Austin TV has a disaster week, 28 points. They get 11 from Joseph Martinez behind his brace off the bench. Outside of that, Thiago Amada, their high scorer, with just 5. And RB out there, Texas Ring of Fire, their highest score on the year as well with 51. So not too shabby there, getting over the 50-point mark. 13 for Christian Espinoza, 10 for Lucho Acosta, 9 for Andre Blake, getting back in the good graces of the clean sheet bonus there in the MLS fantasy scoring. So looking at the standings here, Moon Tower alone again up top, 521 total points. Look, 476 for We Are Austin TV, 465 for the North End. So let's focus on taking down those boys first. Let's get second place.
Yeah.
Then we can worry about catching up to Moon Tower. And again, the big week for Texas Ring of Fire too. 447 for RB and the boys. So they have caught back. We both of us are catching up to We Are Austin TV, and Driussi out a little while still. Rui Diaz out a little while still. We'll see, boys. Things are getting tight. So week 12 coming up here on Saturday. Excited to tally those scores, at least right now. We'll see how we're feeling on Saturday night. Again, we'll do the bets hopefully here with Mr. Lahoud, and if not, we'll do it afterwards. But let's go ahead and jump in here to our conversation with the great Michael Lahoud. All right, everybody. We teased it earlier in the episode. We are joined by the great Michael Lahoud. Mike, really appreciate you joining the North End podcast today, taking the time. First of all, I mean, we talked about it a little bit before we hit record here. How you feeling after an Austin FC win last night?
Oh man, I'm as I was talking to you guys, I usually take the train to commute back and forth in the mornings every week. And when I was jumping on board the train, the conductors at Amtrak, the good people at Amtrak, they were like, "Man, you're in a really good mood." And I was like, "Am I usually not in a good mood?" And I'm like, "Don't answer that." So winning does wonders for the mind, body, and soul. And thank you, Austin FC, for getting that win last night.
Yeah, we all needed it. We know those guys did as well,
Yeah.
coaches and players alike. So
Yeah.
advancing in the Open Cup, we recapped that game earlier in the episode. Ready for Chicago here in a couple weeks. Shaqiri coming down to Q2. I can't wait for that.
Yeah.
And we'll talk some more Austin FC here in a little bit, but we definitely wanted to get to know you and your background a little bit more as Austin fans. Like, obviously, we've enjoyed the calls on the local broadcast the first 2 seasons, and still the match day -1s, the Verde lights, and all the other media that you do. But we knew on the surface level, right? Born in Sierra Leone, moved to Virginia, I believe, when you were really young, like 6 years old. I heard, I tried to dig up some more stuff about that. Like, it seems like that was just something that I cannot imagine as a pale white guy who was privileged here in Central Texas. Can you tell us a little bit more about growing up there, the civil unrest, the emergency visa? Like, it's something that I would just like to know a little bit more about your background in that manner.
Yeah, my story, and I've learned to really own my story in ways that I think for the first 20 something years of my life, I didn't really know what my story was. I didn't even know what reference points to have to my story outside of soccer. And so if you'd asked me this maybe 5, 6 years ago, I would have started when I came here and kicked the round ball for the first time in an organized manner. Well, my story predates that. As you said, I was born in Freetown, Sierra Leone. I coined it the original West Coast for those of us who have any anthropological background. Human beings did come from Africa, and Sierra Leone being on the West Coast, so West Side. But realistically, it was the Shire. I was born into a world at peace. I didn't know of anything of war, had no clue what was happening in the rest of the continent in Africa, which was in turmoil. The world that I knew was going to the beach with my family. Sierra Leone had some of the most beautiful beaches in Africa. I remember Europeans and people all around the world used to come to beaches like Lumley Beach, which is where we went a lot every Sunday, family outings, and it was really peaceful. And then one day sitting at school, I was about 6 years old in primary school, the equivalent to elementary school. The door burst open. My grandma, I think she was in her 50s, maybe 50s or 60s at the time, very able-bodied woman, showed it on that day, broke down the door, reached in, grabbed my hand, and didn't say a word. I was in the middle of taking an exam, and we were off. And what happened afterward in that 24-hour, 36-hour span was absolute chaos. Came home, people were screaming, didn't know what was going on, and I knew that there was something on the line, but no one would talk to me. And even if they did, I was 6 years old. I was a kid. And so I went to the only person who was always the calming force in my life in Sierra Leone, my great grandma. And when I asked her, Grandma, what's going on? Why is everyone yelling? She said, don't worry, you're going to go on holiday or vacation as we know it. You're going to go to a faraway place called America. I'm like, oh, great. I know that place, America. That's where they make the Steven Seagal movies and stuff.
Unfortunately.
And so she was like, yep, that place. And at the time, my parents had already moved to the States, and I was the remaining member of my family still in Sierra Leone. And I had no clue, but I'd gotten an emergency visa that day. And the one stipulation was I had to leave effective immediately. So fast forward, it's still trauma that I'm working through in terms of recapturing what happened and really having my body and mind in the present connect with the past. And I just remember being on a plane in the midst of chaos and seeing things like guns, things that only existed in movies, and things that my family shielded me from throughout my young childhood in Africa. And sitting on the plane, sitting in front of a woman, and the flight was boarded for France in Paris. And it was looking around that I realized, oh my gosh, my family's nowhere close. I've never been on a plane before. Go to the window. Uh-oh, those are clouds. There's only one way out of this. And it's when the pilot says, we're going down. And we're landing, excuse me. Going down would be bad. And so it was the start of the greatest adventure called life for me. And it was a start to life unlike any other.
That's, I mean, obviously doing a little bit of the background research into Michael Lahoud, we knew some of that, but man, to hear you recount it, glad you're here for sure.
Thank you.
Once you
Thank you.
Once you went from West Coast of Africa to East Coast of North America, one name came up when I was kind of digging around. Can you tell us a little bit about what Shannon Brown meant to you once you got to the States?
Oh man, Shannon Brown. So moving from Africa to the States, one of the things in Sierra Leone that I never knew what it was, I never knew what the color of someone's skin was. Everyone was identified as Sierra Leoneans. It wasn't black, white, brown, purple. It was, you're Sierra Leone, you speak the language, you know the culture, you are all of us, not one of us, but all of us. And there was pride in that. So when I came to the States, I noticed differences. And one way as a child, if no one explains who you are or where you come from, the hardest way you identify is what you're not and who you don't belong to. And so Shannon Brown, she was an African-American young woman who I went to elementary school with, one of the first people I met. And one of the pains of being an immigrant child is the English language. I could understand English fluently. I learned it. It's actually my second language, my first being Creole, a derivative of Creole and English, and really Pidgin English, if you will. So I was really bashful. I hated kind of being called on and, just, I don't really want to speak English poorly. And so after school, Shannon Brown would teach me English. She would teach me colloquialisms and things like, yo, dude.
Right.
You don't learn that in English school in Africa.
Right.
So in the course of probably a year and a half, 2 years, it was this undercover relationship and friendship that really did wonders in making friends and adapting to life in America.
Well, that's awesome to hear. Glad I saw the little kind of face light up a little bit when you hear Shannon Brown. So I appreciate you sharing the background there. Let's jump into the soccer career a little bit, because that does, you are still, it seems, intertwined with Sierra Leone and the work you do there, and that ties into your soccer career. But first, collegiately, right? Like Wake Forest, Demon Deacons, we're basketball guys first. We actually met playing at St. Edward's here in Austin in college. So I'm a huge Tim Duncan fan. Our buddy Rob loves CP3, but CP3 left, I think, the year before you got there. And then basketball took a downturn and soccer shot up there. I mean, you yourself, right? ACC all-freshman team in 05, 14 goals, 20 assists in your 4 seasons there, but national champs in 07, Final Four sandwiching that in 06 and 08. You're tied for second in career games played with 95. How was that experience as a 4-year college player and having so much success at that level? It seems from our little, we dive in a little bit to the college soccer here as we've kind of learned. We're learning on the fly as relatively new MLS fans. It doesn't seem like that type of success happens all that often at the collegiate level here.
It was a different era. It was a different time. It was before academies. And when I was coming through, I was part of kind of the last bit of a generation. And I put the likes of an Aleko Eskandarian, the Kyle Martinos, so many players, your top American talent. College soccer was your only route to becoming a pro. Project 40 was just in its infancy. Generation Adidas. I think Generation Adidas may have come out my freshman year. So those things were just young in having a pathway as a teenager or a 19, 20-year-old to go directly to the pros. Most people that I knew, the only path forward was to play college soccer. And it wasn't the one and done. Sorry, Zion. Not happening here for college soccer. You stayed. And it was a big deal and an honor to be part of a program leaving your legacy. There's tradition, and there's still some of that tradition, but the landscape has completely changed. And I think rightfully so, because of the implementation of U.S. soccer academies. the implementation of something like MLS Next Pro, which we'll talk about. I love talking about it. I love it with clubs like Austin FC and the league as a whole. But when you ask me what my time at Wake Forest was like, it was life-changing. It gave me direction, not just the game, but it gave me a sense of just being a good soccer player comes last, and really being a good human being comes first. And my head coach at Wake Forest University, Jay Vidovich, used to say this to me and drilled it in my head. He said, it's about winning on and off the field. That we all know people who are super successful at their jobs, super successful in sports. But if you're not a good human being, if you're not making value-driven choices, then what are you? It becomes fickle because sports come and go. But what you do off the field, that just lasts forever. And it really was a coming of age and really coming into adulthood period for me. The accolades, the championships, I mean, I'll take those all day.
Right.
And my little tidbit, my father-in-law, he has actually, Tim Fisher, he is a fellow Demon Deacon, so go Deeks. He was on the ACC winning football team at Wake Forest back in the 70s. So we talk a lot about that, of the tradition of just going from adolescent into becoming a young man. And I think Wake Forest does a good job of that.
Well, and again, as basketball guys, you can look at somebody like Tim Duncan, exemplary off the court, and, you know, hardly any scandals in his career. CP3, president of the Players Association there. So Wake Forest, I think, doing good things, turning out some good human beings, as you put it. And I know you mentioned father-in-law. I know recently married, recent 1-year anniversary. So congrats on that. Then after college, right? 9th overall in the 09 Super Draft, Chivas USA, 16 appearances for them that first year, goal and an assist. And that first MLS goal, we'd love to see this, Michael, against the Houston Dynamo, which, like, kind of San Jose still at that point, but, you know, we love it nonetheless. Then Philadelphia Union for 4 seasons, almost 60 appearances there, loan period with the Cosmos in New York, and then Miami FC. And it seemed to me like this is where, like, I know you were doing humanitarian work beforehand, like 2010 MLS Works Humanitarian of the Month for your work with the HIV prevention efforts there. But in 2015, the FIFA Pro Merit Award with Kai Kamara, right? And then 2016 Humanitarian of the Year in the NASL. What is Schools for Siloam? And are you still doing work with them and the Education for All School with Kai?
Yes, I am. And if the world was to put a pin in everything for all of us tomorrow, I remember a mentor of mine said this, is at the end of your life, what do you want people to write about and say about you? Was it he worked hard, he worked a lot, and he had hobbies, or did he she make a difference and touch people's lives? And so my journey with Schools for Siloam, which is a nonprofit based in Seattle that does good work in Sierra Leone to rebuild education and to touch lives of young people in the next generation, really stemmed from 2010. I was up in Seattle for a game, those pesky Seattle Sounders, the other version of green, Rave Green. We're going to get them eventually. We're going to get them.
Next weekend. Or next week, I should say.
Yeah, next week. It's going to be a big one. But I remember being in Seattle, and this is, you know, as we talk about Open Cup, this was the Open Cup era for the Sounders, where they were winning left and right. And I was getting in the hotel, and this woman named Cindy Knopfziger met me in a hotel in downtown Seattle, and she asked me a pretty profound question, just out of college, and she said, "How would you like to change the world?" I'm like, oh my goodness, what? I'm getting ready to go kick Steve Zakawani, Ozzy Alonso, Freddie Montero, who still plays somehow. And she asked me that before we're getting ready for a game. And it touched me in a way that no tactic, no schedule, no scholarship, and no contract ever had before. And so I marinated on it a bit, and it was the first time I'd really looked back into my story of who am I and where do I come from, and how can I use my story to touch someone else's life. So she gave me a book by the name of an author called Ishmael Bia called The Long Way Gone. And it tells of the perils and pitfalls of the civil war in Sierra Leone. And really, it told me what my life would have been like if I was lucky enough to survive it, or if not. But that my life was a lottery that I won, that the lottery visa was more than an opportunity to go play professional soccer and live out my dreams. It was an opportunity to save my very own life and my family's life. And realizing that as a 20-something-year-old, I wanted to make sure through Schools for Siloam and helping in the education efforts to rebuild education and make sure that what happened in Sierra Leone in the Civil War will never happen again. And educated people are a people that are forced to be reckoned with. And I think that really we see that here in the United States and some of the changes that have happened in the last couple of years, that it's power to the people, man, and power to the educated people. And I want to bring that and do that in my home country.
Man, that is even before we talk to you, just like reading up a little bit about that, it's certainly made a profound impact on me this week leading up to talking to you today. So I imagine some of the fans tuning in will feel the same way. Before we keep going, is there a way that fans, us included, can help out at all if we're interested in getting involved, even from thousands of miles away?
Yeah, I mean, number one, with any nonprofit or any philanthropic effort, it's donating. So to give you an idea of how long a US dollar goes, I don't know the exact currency, but let's just talk in layman terms. $1 is worth a ton of leones, the currency in Sierra Leone. And to build a school in the United States costs millions of dollars. To build a school in Sierra Leone that is fully functioning and just continues to tick on and survive costs $50,000. And that's to change kids' lives. So what Kai Kamara and I and Cindy and Schools for Siloam did in those 5 years was we raised 50 grand over 5 years through the help of fans and caring people and generous people all around the world, people like you guys taking interest. And it starts as simple as donating. I think you can go to the website, www.schoolsforsiloam.com. I wouldn't say .gov because that would make no sense. So .com is what I'm sticking with. And our school is called the Education for All School. But don't just stop there. If there's a school or a story or a project that someone else is doing, do the right thing, follow your heart if you feel led to it, and donate. Second is just spreading the word, just having a platform to talk about Sierra Leone, talk about Africa. I'm very passionate not just about my home country, but about Africa in general, not just about everyday life. But there's something coming called 2026, right? There's a round ball that's going to be the main event. I am passionate about the beautiful game in Africa as well.
Awesome.
Nice, man. Well, I mean, speaking of the beautiful game in Africa, I think 4 caps for you for your home country. Were those all World Cup qualifiers? Because there's not a ton of information out there on the Sierra Leonean team there. How was that experience? Is that where you got connected with Kai Kamara? Because obviously he's been in MLS forever, it seems, as well.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, he is the Sierra Leonean Benjamin Button. This guy just won't stop. We were my co-host and everyone's favorite elder statesman, Adrian Healy, and I, we were having lunch today, and his name came up, and I think one of our producers looked over and said, "That guy's still playing?" And he's been with the league since the start. No, but what Kai's doing is defying the odds age-wise. But when I go back to Kai, I actually met Kai my rookie year. We both have family. We both have, our past lives were connected to Southern California. And Kai, he grew up in Southern California. So I remember playing pickup with him, the likes of Sasha Kleshin, some of that 08 Olympic squad, the last Olympic team that made it to the Olympics, having a ton of fun. And this guy starts speaking to me in Creole. And you don't get that often. Too many people in the States speaking your native tongue at a soccer game. But fast forward, Kai and I really grew close during our national endeavors and matches in Africa. Playing for your country, I don't care if you are Sierra Leonean, American, if you're even from Djibouti or the Galapagos Islands. I don't even know they have a national team, but let's just say they do. There is no greater glory and honor than when that anthem comes on. And you're playing for something bigger than yourself. You're playing for people who sacrifice for you. And that's what really hit me, that my story is not just my own, that there are people, a whole generation before me, who sacrificed a lot. The lottery visa I got, and even before that, to make sure I could have a life to live out my dream. And every time I put on the jersey, and I got 4 caps, I got called into a bunch of camps. One thing that I take away from it is not just the passion of playing for Sierra Leone, but it is a drama. You take telenovelas and just put them on steroids. There's an acronym in Africa called TIA, which means this is Africa. Anything that can happen will happen. And when I do my tell-all book coming out in the future, you guys will be the first to hear some of those stories because I've got a bunch of them.
I can't wait for that, man. And I appreciate you going more into that background because I imagine it can be, we can draw out some emotion for sure to speak about your experience in life. Just real quick, didn't want to, ignore the kind of the wind down to the career. FC Cincinnati in 2018. I looked at that at first. I was like, oh man, that must have been a terrible year. But that was the last year in USL, and you guys were awesome. I think won the league, right? Set USL attendance records, won the regular season that year, and then finished your career down there in San Antonio with SAFC. And so we'll let that slide because of all the other things you've done for Austin and scoring against Houston to open your career. And then one thing that I knew when you first got hired as the color commentator for the local broadcast is that I saw you were coaching at Trinity. I was the assistant basketball coach at Southwestern for 7 seasons. So a little rivalry there, So how was before we get into some Austin FC talk finally here, how was your 1.5 seasons coaching down there at Trinity?
It was incredible. It was really my first foray into the Texas soccer culture. And there's so many different layers of soccer culture fandom, but just a soccer experience that makes Texas a real hotbed for this game. And getting connected or reconnected to the college game, the head coach and a friend and mentor of mine, Paul McGinley, he's been there. Talk about Kai being around forever. He's been there forever. I think spanning 3 decades and really building that program from the ground up. So, kudos and golf clap for him for what he's done. But I learned a ton. When you play the game, you think you know so much about the game. When you finish your career, you think you know even more about the game. And when you now have to turn around and communicate what you know to a whole new generation of players who don't speak the same language as you do in terms of soccer vocabulary, who don't know half of the players that you may have played with, whole different generation, it teaches you that the game evolves and you do too. And I learned how to communicate in ways that I think were directly correlated to my ability to communicate and hopefully still grow in communicating in what I do now in broadcasting.
I'm glad to hear you say that because that was similar to my experience too. Obviously not as a seasoned professional, but going from playing to the coaching side of things, it teaches you see the whole other side in ways that you never could have imagined as a player. So I guess let's get into some Austin FC talk here. Despite what you may think through the first 20 minutes or so of this, Ian does talk. So let me throw it over to him because I've been a bit long-winded here. I know he had some specific questions about, everybody's favorite team here and your involvement. So sorry, E, for dominating this the first 20 minutes.
No worries. When smarter people are talking, I try to listen. I've just hearing your backstory and everything has been so impressive. I would want to know what type of advice you have for the younger generation who it looks like you have used soccer as like this vessel to create this more beautiful kind of life. And I know that, a lot of young kids aspire to be pros and to be professionals and to have these great illustrious careers. But what would be the piece of advice that you would give somebody coming up who's looking to turn some negatives into their lives into a positive and grow into like this really well, cultured and developed adult through soccer?
I think it's a couple of things that come to mind. And looking at my story, I find myself very fortunate. And it wasn't all down to me. I was surrounded by a lot of people and some of the right people that came into my life at the right time. I go back to some of the friends that I had. Someone I always want to give a shout out to, my first friend I ever made, Jack Wolf. Him and his family took a chance on me. First person I met at school. And really, when you're going through tough times or if you're transitioning from moving from one city to another or from a different country to another, friends are everything. And building a community. Friends lead us to community. So choose wisely on who you surround yourself with. And I always think this, surround yourself with people who you admire, people who you share certain values with, but who have something to teach you. And in turn, you might have something to teach them. And then wisdom is all around us. When I look at when I was in high school, I had a club soccer coach when I was 16, 17, who really opened my eyes to being on the path of the road less traveled by. I know it's a great, story, and I want to say it's a poem. I'm going to botch it a bit, but really that each of us have a choice in making certain decisions that put us on a really unique path, and follow that path, because you'll never know some of the brilliant things that you might experience in your life if you just stay in your comfort zone. And lastly, is dream big. As a kid to an adult, and even now, all I've done is pursue my dreams. And you can only reach the dreams that you have to begin with. And only you can dream. No one can dream for you. The people that dream for you, you'll get found out in the end, because that is not your dream. So follow your heart, pursue your dreams, and you might just surprise yourself at what you land. A quick story about that. 2020, and it'll segue into Austin FC, I had chosen to retire from soccer. I just met my wife. I think that probably had a lot to do with it, but chosen to retire from professional soccer, and knew I was looking at something else. The world stopped, and I had no clue of how do you retire as a professional athlete during COVID when the world shut down. No one wrote the book on that. So I made a couple phone calls, and I felt like someone in the dark trying to put together all these faint puzzle pieces of how to move forward. The only thing that I had that was a flashlight was dreaming. And so each day, each week, I just dreamt a little bit more, and then followed the next step in the yellow brick road. And as I did that, my dream grew bigger and bigger. And then sitting down with my wife one day, she asked me, in a perfect world, what would you do? What do you want to do next? And I said, and I've actually never shared this with anyone, so this is a North End podcast exclusive. She said, or I said to her, in this next chapter, if I could do broadcasting and do it at the highest level, if I could talk about soccer both domestically and internationally, and if I could work with Adrian Healy, I would be fulfilled. This is before I even applied for the job in Austin.
Oh, man.
Because, I mean, let's just give this guy his kudos.
Yeah.
He is a legend. He's a legend among us. Talk about grow the legend. He's become a really dear friend, mentor, confidant, and he's just one of the gentlemen of the game. And you hear that a lot about people who played, but he is one of the gentlemen, iconic broadcasters of his generation, of the modern era. And so I pinch myself each week, every day, when I show up and I hear him say something poetic. And then he turns to me, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I have to actually follow up Adrian Healy.
He's talking to me.
Yeah.
Oh, that's great. So also, I mean, this country in general, not just with the MLS, we're obviously trying to make a stronger push towards becoming, better or more recognized in the soccer world. What's one thing that you think the MLS is lacking right now, and that we need to do in order to progress this game here in the States, so that we can be mentioned with these other leagues across the world that are highly respected and regarded?
I think one thing that the MLS can still do better, and I think they've come a long way, is slowly eliminating the pay-to-play sort of model. Throughout the rest of the world, some of the talent, some of the legends of the game, the original Ronaldo, because I'm upset with CR7 right now. I'm not going to go into that as a Man United fan as well. But the original Ronaldo, Leone, Messi, these are players who were found, who were scouted, and they would not have been able to realize their dream if they would have had to pay a fee in order to play for some of the clubs they played for, the Cruzeiros, the FC Barcelona, the Rosario Centrales. So it leads me to this, which is continue to excavate talent in all areas, not just in the suburbs, not just in the organized ways, but sending scouts into urban areas. The ecosystem is there in the United States. The model is there. The funding is there in terms of dollars to be spent. I think now it's about doing the little bit of extra. A state and an area like Central Texas and pretty much all of Texas, you have soccer hotbeds that are still neglected in the United States. And it's not the national team's job to just do that. It starts at the lower levels. It starts at universities doing it, academies doing it, and professional club teams doing it. And a vessel like MLS Next Pro, MLS Next, those are going to be massive factors in deciding how the game grows in this country.
Absolutely. I'll shoot it back to you, Zach.
Yeah, I mean, let's talk a little bit more about, I guess, the first team at first, and then we can also bring in FC2 because obviously those boys, like Ian's been joking the last couple months, like that's his new favorite team. Like first team, no longer best friends. But so the first team, right? Like obviously they've been struggling compared to expectations, and this is the first time in our 3 seasons that we've had the weight of expectations. As somebody who went through, right, the ups and downs of a long regular season for almost a decade in your professional career, what would you say to fans who think the sky is falling, I guess, for lack of a better term?
Well, I feel like we're a broken record on Match Day -1 and Verde Lights show. It is a long season, folks. Yeah. Last season, so much happened at the start. We failed to forget because it was a long season. We were neck and neck going for a supporter shield, but you look at the latter stages of the regular season, and you look at how we were able to rebound in terms of getting momentum. This is a league of parity and momentum unlike any other. It's broken down into multiple seasons. Yes, how you start matters, but we've had something to deal with this year that most expansion teams don't out of the gate. CONCACAF Champions League. That is a game changer. And it's part of the growing pains of let's address the elephant in the room, the Violette game. It happened. Yeah. None of us are proud of it. And I think we've just started seeing the team moving beyond that. I've been there as a player, and maybe not in the CONCACAF Champions League, but when you drop a game against a team that everyone expects you to beat, and at a level that you are far above, it's a cloud that hangs. There's pressure that now forms, and it almost is so easy to forget about what happened and the amount of work that's gone in to producing the body of work to get to that moment. That is the beauty of having multiple competitions, is it allows you to put a pause and a pin in what's not happening in the league or the CONCACAF Champions League. And I'm so grateful for a competition like the US Open Cup. That's something that can be a lifeline for an organization and for a club like Austin FC. You make a cup run, and now you're talking about something totally different. You have another ticket you can punch to the Champions League immediately.
And we were actually discussing that earlier in the episode, and I think E and I are in lockstep that you're 4 wins away from a cup now, and we feel like we have just been sun running with these draws. There's one USL team you could draw in the round of 32. We get them. We take care of business. Chicago, probably the team right now. Shaqiri not in the best form. They just fired Coach Hendrickson, so going through a little bit of a change there. Now that you're 4 wins away and a 2-month break, you make it to the semis. That's not till late August. So, is this something that in your mind, Josh and the team as a whole should be prioritizing over some of these league matches? Because I know, this match right before FC Dallas, Chicago's coming right before Houston, and that's the first one that counts for Copa Tejas. So I guess what would your outlook be if you're in Josh's shoes? Are you going all out at the Open Cup now and trying to get that trophy in the trophy cabinet? Which, look, Copa Tejas is great. That ain't in the team's trophy cabinet. That's a supporter's trophy. And like you mentioned, you can punch another CCL ticket with a win. So I guess, are you with us in thinking that we should be throwing all of our resources at that when the time comes?
I think so. I think it's going to be dependent on what happens in the Leagues Cup campaign. And that's going to be a great experience no matter what, because ultimately in the longevity of soccer in North America and the push towards 2026, which I can't wait to do this North End podcast in 4 years' time. Yes, I'm coming back on because I love what you guys do. I love the open platform and the honesty and the sports betting. We're going to get to that soon as well. But I think this is a year unlike any other, not just because, as I said, the CONCACAF Champions League, but you have a break. You have an opportunity to now shift your focus. That Leagues Cup break is going to do wonders, and you can really manage the seasons in ways that you didn't have to before or you couldn't before. Now, on the flip side, say Austin FC, which I think we expect them to win and we really hope they're going to win, and there's good case for them beating Chicago. Still have to play the game. Yeah. Say they beat Chicago now. Then you put a pin in the Open Cup, and now you are moving towards that being at the business end of the season, and you can refocus your league efforts to getting things right in the league, and then you put a pin in that and then focus towards the Leagues Cup. I think the way that the schedule has really mapped itself out could be a benefit to Austin FC in ways that we didn't feel that way at the start of the season.
I'm with that.
Go ahead. E had something.
I'm just with it. I feel like obviously the script last year was we were super hot, we tailed off, and you don't want to be tailing off at the end and the latter part of the season. We've gone through this really difficult stretch here of honestly a couple of months, some really terrible injuries that we avoided last year. And it's just really shaping up for me that we're going to be getting hot and healthy at the right time. And when you can look at it from that perspective where it's like we don't have to put all of our eggs into one basket and neglect this other basket, but instead focus ourselves and then refocus ourselves on what we want to accomplish. I'm just excited. I'm excited for this team to get healthy. And I'm glad you're on board with that too.
No, wouldn't happen any other way.
And you see guys like Sebastian Driussi, obviously injured right now, but you look on Twitter this morning, he's taking receipts while he's on the shelf here for a couple weeks, and I think he's gonna come back, and we're gonna see him return to that MVP candidate form like we saw throughout last season. So I guess just a little bit on FC2 before we get to some of the betting nonsense that we like to do here in the middle of the week. Obviously, we can really only say good things about these guys so far. Have not lost a match. Did get that first outright road win at Portland Timbers 2 this past weekend, but showdown coming up on Sunday against Rapids 2, who are the only team above us in the West. And we were just going through right before you hopped on. We were just going through all the first team guys that they have down on their second team. Their defense looks like something to be reckoned with. Is there anything that you would maybe say to some of those guys? Because maybe some of them listen to this podcast. Like, what type of advice would you give to those guys going into, for me, outside of the home opener back against Dynamo 2 a few months ago? This is the biggest game for them so far, and it's a tough challenge.
Well, I played against what was formerly the USL version of Colorado Rapids 2, and going to altitude is so difficult, and especially when you're coming from an area like Austin. I know we have the hills, but they got mountains, man, and it sucks when you're breathing heavy. What I like about this Austin FC Sioux side, so much has been made about their home form, but they've been competitive on the road. The fact that you went to play a Portland team, you've already played some of your nearest competitors that came out here to Austin, and you wiped the floor with them. You've had positive results. The fact that you've gotten results, I know penalty kicks, technically not getting that extra point, technically a loss. That doesn't matter to me. It's still a draw. And you're coming off a monumental win, tough place to play against an organization like Portland who crank out talent. Portland and Seattle, they crank out talent through their academy system. That will give them confidence. Trust in your preparation. I saw them play or train this morning. There was a laser sharp focus, almost a first team focus to the group. You would never know as a second team. And similar to Colorado, it's the benefactor and benefit of having first team guys mixed with draftees, mixed with academy guys. There's a professional environment in this group, and it shows in terms of the result and the different players who have stepped up. Give flowers to Valentin Noel. He's been excellent. Covered him in college soccer with Pitt. Him and his pesky Pit Panther strike partner or midfield partner in Jackson Walty. They've been excellent. And kudos to Kip Keller as well. Difficult start to the season for him. Not the way we thought it was going to start, but he's really found himself, made his way back onto the bench. That's a player that, given injuries, you never know when you're going to have to rely on him. And also the attack, the Micah Burtons, players of the future. Alfredo Ocampo Chavez. I mean, David Rodriguez scored the game winner. And the double Bs, Bobosi Biraranga. Sorry if I butcher your name, Bobosi, but
that's our boy. We love Bobo.
Oh my gosh, man. This guy, he can play anywhere on either side of the ball. So I've been keeping up some of you guys, and I can't wait for one of these players score that goal for the first team in a big game. It's gonna happen.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, absolutely. And we've also, this is really the first chance for us to get an extended look or a look at all at Damian Lass. And he him and Kip and then Joe Hafferty, like I'll give props to Sean Rubio because I believe he was the architect of this FC2 team, and it feels like they are too deep at every single position. So excited to continue watching those guys throughout the rest of their season. Let's close it out here. Let's get to the best. This is the fun part, right? Or maybe not so fun for our wallets lately, but hopefully you can give us some of that good Wuju here. E, let me toss it to you. Mike, what I want to do is kind of list off to you what we've got on our card so far this week. And if you either, you can add something if you've been looking at the odds, or if you want to just void, cancel us out on one of these picks, feel free to do it because, again, we need the help. So, E, what's your first pick here in week 12?
We got to get the Lahoud stamp of approval, obviously. Okay. Austin plus 120 at home, FC Dallas coming to town. But this might be one of the pitfalls of our units being mixed. We've been taking Austin pretty heavily. Yeah. But how do you feel about that one?
I'm psyched. I love that bet. I approve that bet. And here's why. FC Dallas winless in their last 3 games, and that's including all cup competitions. They have one player who's scoring all their goals, and that's Jesus Ferreira. I know that Alan Velasco is tipped to come back. He came off the bench in their Open Cup loss to Nashville, but it's a derby game. You never know what to expect on derby games, but derby games against Dallas, Austin FC have shown up in the last 3 matchups. I think they show up again. You're getting players healthy at the right time. Alexander Radovanovic makes his debut, so kudos to him. And now you're getting attackers scoring goals. I mean, you have different goal scorers stepping up, and I usually tend to lean towards the team that have different points of attack than teams that have one player who can deliver the goods. So you keep Jesus Ferreira quiet, and Austin FC will validate that bet.
Yeah. Love it. I like that one. And we were talking when E brought that Austin bet to me again, because again we've kind of tried to pump the brakes on our homer bets, but looking at that Open Cup game, like you said, they played a similar lineup to Austin where Ferreira is out there, Pomical's out there, like you mentioned, Velasco came in. So glad we get the VerDos stamp there from Michael Lahoud. I don't like this one as much, but E has been saying this one is like, it's the perfect bet. And it's to bet on our rivals because if we win, it helps our wallet. And if we don't win in the betting market, we're winning in the standings and with our fandom. So I'm looking at Houston. They're plus 150 at home, hosting Seattle. Seattle, obviously, they just came off a cup game last night. Didn't play hardly anybody. Looked like Joao Paulo came back for a few minutes off the bench, but still no Raul Ruiz. Christian Roldan still out, and I think Leo Chu out as well this weekend. So for me, Houston has been very good at home. It's going to be humid this weekend. It's always humid in Houston, but looks like we're getting some tropical weather here in Texas. So the plus odds there, plus 150 for Houston. How do you feel about that? Again, I don't feel great, but what do you think, Mike?
I'd love to see the stats and the numbers because I remember a point last year and maybe even in 2021 where I saw Seattle coming off a multi-game week and going to Houston. The one thing the Sounders know how to do is play against Houston in Houston. But I think this is a different Houston Dynamo team because they are better at home this season. They are getting more complete performances. Their midfield's their strength. The Hector Herreras, the Carrasquillas, those are their 2 best players. And as well as the defensive midfielder, Artur, coming in, slotting in well. That trio, that triumvirate, very difficult as we saw when Austin FC went to Houston. Not the game they were hoping for or the result. For Seattle, I like that bet. For Seattle, the injuries give me caution to favor them in any capacity. Another bet is maybe a side bet. Maybe keep an eye on a draw. Because Brian Schmetzer teams, when they are shorthanded, and they did that after getting a big result in the CONCACAF Champions League, coming to Q2 Stadium last spring, they sat behind the ball, and it was Will Bruin that scored against Austin FC. But they got a 1-1 draw, and that felt like 3 points for them. But I'll allow it for this bet again for Houston. I think it's a smart bet.
All right. Well, hey, maybe we love Will now. Maybe offside on that play. Tough camera angle in that one, but
I think you're right.
All right, E. Give us another one here.
All right. For this one, it's another derby matchup. I'm going to pick on a squad that is in absolute shambles in the New York Red Bulls. NYCFC coming to town. Get them at plus 270. Red Bulls just changed their coach. They're obviously still dealing with the fallout from some insensitive racist remarks that came out from their players. So I think that the chemistry, I think that team is just broken. And I want to pick on them. And plus 270 with NYCFC it seems juicy. Is it a trap?
I say run, don't walk away from the Red Bulls right now. Okay. I think that it's just when you have a coach that gets fired, dropped, or removed for something, bad results or whatnot, it's natural in the game to see an uptick in performance. We see it in every league that you have that new win, players getting another chances. But when it's something value driven, when it's something happening behind the scenes above the locker room, that tends to reverberate for a short while. This Red Bull team, outside of one or two players, they're not clicking. They've lost probably their best player in Aaron Long, and they play that back three system. I mean, they're leaking goals right now, and they're not looking as likely to get a result. New York City, they found themselves, and in the form of Santi Rodriguez, he's a player that if I'm looking at anytime goal scorer, look for him, because I'm very high on him. He got the new number 10, Tati Castellanos out, Maxi Morales out. This is his team, and I think he's going to deliver.
The City Football Group, man, never stays down for long, right? They just find ways. Week 1, this team looked completely different from how they look now in Week 12. And James Sand's been great for them coming back to the team.
Massive.
So, you got the stamp of approval there, I guess, and obviously some big odds. All right, I think this one, doesn't take an expert to, I think, make this one. LAFC sent basically LAFC 2 out to Monterey Bay the other night, and Jakupovic was really the only guy, and he's still backing up John McCarthy there. He was really the only regular to play. So LAFC traveling to RSL, obviously dropped their first game, first time this season, right? That unbeaten streak comes to an end at San Jose last week, but now they're also going to the Elevation out there at Rio Tinto. Really, Mike, anytime I can get plus money on LAFC this season, I feel like I got to take it. So plus 135 is where I'm at right now.
This reminds me of anytime we see Erling Haaland in the plus category or Harry Kane in the plus category in the Premier League game. Definitely not Champions League game. Didn't score as much there. You take it. Same with Robert Lewandowski. You take some of the sure things, and you take LAFC because of players like Dennis Berwanga, Carlos Vela. I mean, this is a team that has the luxury of playing when they want, and so far this season, they've wanted to play every game. Fell short in that San Jose game, but San Jose is a good team. They showed it when they came to Q2 Stadium. They're very good at home. LAFC, though, they're a different cut above a lot of teams in Major League Soccer, and right now, I still think they're the best team in MLS.
Yeah. Same. So I thought that would be an easy one for you to get on board with. I think we got one more each. So how you closing out your Week 12 card?
Pardon me. I am closing out my Week 12 card. Initially we talked earlier before the show about taking San Jose, but I ended up with Nashville going into DC United. DC United, a team that I may be the only person who touted in the world.
He's a big believer in the fighting Roonies.
That's on the fighting Roonies.
I also might have gotten most of their roster confused with the Revs, but that's there.
Happens.
So Nashville going into DC plus 225, a very talented Nashville squad. I just like the numbers there. In my novice takes on these bets here, I'm just looking at the talent disparity, and you mentioned the parity in this league. It's really burnt me and Zach so far. So Nashville plus 225 going into DC. Lahoud stamp of approval?
Yes, absolute stamp of approval. Give me to me 2-time. Boom, boom.
Right.
And this is a Nashville side that they have added depth. They traded CJ Sapong to Toronto. CJ is a close friend of mine. Wish him all the best of luck in his new chapter and endeavors up north in Canada. But this is a Nashville side that they've changed the formation. They play a 4-3-1-2. Hani Mukhtar playing as the attacking midfielder, a position that I think he's going to thrive in because he can slip between the lines. You have Fafa Picoult, who can either start, come off the bench, Teal Bunbury leading the line, Alex Muil coming off the bench. I mean, Sean Davis was a starter. He doesn't even start week in and week out. This season, Dax McCart. I mean, they just have some veterans, a solid team, good on set pieces. And when you're a road team, you can play the beautiful game. You can play a team off the park, but set pieces will be the difference maker in this one. I pick Nashville.
Sweet.
I love it. I love it.
Never
All
felt
right.
better. I've never felt better.
All right. My last one for you here. You mentioned your boy Sapong going up there. I think scored in his debut for Toronto. But I'm going to his new teammate. Give me Lorenzo Insigne. Anytime goal plus 250. He's healthy. Who knows for how long? But while he's healthy, I think he's going to keep banging in some goals. He scored in his return from the hamstring injury. Nothing last week, but I think he gets back on the board. Again, a rivalry matchup against Montreal. That is a rematch from a match that got ugly midweek.
Yeah.
So a little extra fuel maybe for both sides here. I like the Italian to score. What do you think about that?
I think that's a solid shout. I'd look at him or CJ to get goals for a struggling Toronto side this season. A lot of expectation, and that comes when you sign the players, the Insignes, the Bernardeschi's. Bernardeschi was a revelation last year. Hasn't been quite the same. Still early start to the year. But Montreal, they are not the same team. They've gotten a couple surprise results here and there, but they leak goals. And that back line, there's some new players that have come in very high on Aaron Herrera. It's going to take some time. They lost their coach in Wilfred Nancy. Columbus is just enjoying the benefit of that.
Yeah.
And his 3-4-3, they look like world beaters with him at the helm. So I think that I'll allow that. I'm hesitant with Toronto because every time I get super high on them, I look again and I'm like, wait, what?
Yeah.
Was their TFC2 team played or what? So I'll say that, but I'd stay away from any match result of sorts because those games tend to be dramatic and then.
Yeah, and I think Sean Johnson was not present in training today. So, yeah, definitely not going to the Toronto side, but maybe has to be a high-scoring affair here. Yeah. So hopefully Lorenzo bangs one in. Well, Michael, we really appreciate it, man. We asked for like 20 minutes. You give us almost an hour here on a Thursday. I know you're super busy, man. So once again, like really appreciate it. Really fun getting to know you a little bit more. And I know you already said you'd come back at some point in the next 4 years. So we'll hold you to that. I guess tell the people where they can find you, what you got going on. You know, we all know Match Day -1 Verde Lights, but I know you are more than that right now. I see it on your feed every day. Tell the people where they can find you.
Yes, you can find me outside of Austin FC, not just tweeting at you live, the good, the bad, and the ugly every match day. I work with CBS Sports. They have a podcast called House of Champions. I work alongside Ian Joy, who used to be the former play-by-play. You can also catch him on the Golasso Network doing his thing. Very experienced broadcaster, former MLSer. Nazriel Coker, who played for West Ham and Aston Villa in the Premier League. Also, I think he does the national studio show for Apple TV and MLS there. And two journalists, world-renowned journalists, Jonathan Johnson in Paris. He's the PSG insider. The Adam Schefter of Paris, knows everything happening with Mbappe, Messi, Neymar, that whole drama. And James Benge, who is as British as you get, and that's a good thing. He is Arsenal's insider. The only person I know who can probably ring up Mikel Arteta on speed dial. So fantastic group, headlined by our producer, Des Norris. And I also will be calling college soccer games for ESPN in the fall and got some other things up the sleeve, but can't tell you about them just yet. But keep an eye out on social media when I break the news.
Awesome. Well, appreciate it once again. Michael Lahoud, everybody, you know where you can find him with the Austin content. So appreciate you coming on, Mike. Thanks for the time once again. And hopefully we talk to you again soon.
Thank you both for having me. For everyone watching, I've actually been a big fan of what you both do. I love your authenticity. I love your honesty, and I love your humor. There's just watching Rodney Redes. I couldn't help but laugh. I would have made it up to the game, but I got my hands on the Verde Margarita at home, and there's no leaving the couch once you do that. So keep up the great work that you guys do. I love just the organic nature and your passion, behind Austin FC and the game as a whole. So thank you.
Man, that was. I know I say this after every guest because we've had some good ones. I think we've been extremely lucky that the guests we've had on so far on the pod, especially this year, whether it was Coach Olivares or Tommy Bogert or Mike, extremely gracious with their time and letting us dive into some more personal details. I know I said it to him when he was here, but hearing Michael's story, especially from his mouth, it's crazy. And again, like I said to him, it's hard to have a point of reference as a pale white guy who was raised relatively privileged in Central Texas.
Yeah.
Just listening to stuff like that and seeing the man, the human that he is now outside of the soccer world that, we all know and love him. Like he's a really impressive dude, man.
Yeah. I mean, always loved him on the local calls. And honestly, after just hearing his backstory and the way that he's been able to just like sculpt his life and live it with just a great purpose is honestly, it was just an honor to get to talk to him for a little bit there. It was really great. And just thank you so much, Michael. It was awesome, man. Really touched me, honestly, made an impact on me personally.
Yeah. Well, and like we said, he said that sometime before 2026, he'll be back on the North End podcast. So we're going to hold him to that.
Yeah.
And can't wait for the return visit. But that's going to do it here on episode 54 of the North End podcast. Appreciate you sticking with us through our longest episode yet.
Yeah.
Almost 2 hours here on a Thursday afternoon. If you've got 5 seconds to rate, review, and subscribe to the podcast, wherever you get your podcast, we would greatly appreciate it. And, tell a friend. You've got an Austin FC friend who's trying to beef up their content rotation and don't listen into the North End podcast. Give us a shout. Help spread the podcast, grow the podcast, help us grow our legend in the Austin FC space. And if you're watching on the YouTube channel, of course, if you haven't yet, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell so you can know when the live stream pops up or a new episode goes live. And of course, on this episode, hit the like button, hit that thumbs up, help us battle the YouTube algorithm overlords. Atone for your sins. Wash yourselves clean in the waters of the North End. We will be back on Sunday recapping Austin FC's rivalry matchup with FC Dallas, recapping the showdown out there in Colorado between FC2 and Rapids 2, hopefully still in good spirits. But until then, everybody enjoy the rest of your week. Enjoy the games this weekend, and we'll see you back here on Sunday. Until then, he's E. I'm Zach. Vamos Austin FC, everybody. Goodbye.